Most of our growth is word of mouth. Like, we hardly spend any money on ads. We don't believe paying people to say something that they don't believe. So we would rather take the chance that either people are going to take the product and love it, they don't talk about it, great. And the ones that do, even better.
You mentioned that you owned 5 retail stores. So what were your biggest challenges in scaling your brick and mortar footprint?
When people have success with like 2 retail stores, they've probably done a really good job at knowing the market, especially that first store, getting it right, building the community around the store. And then they kind of take that blueprint, put it in the next store.
Did you happen to discover any surprising advantages to actually having the storefronts in an era when everyone declares that retail is dead?
From the brand standpoint, from the formulation standpoint, kind of just customer experience, I think it gave us an advantage because I did take that time with the customers getting direct feedback.
You did something that was probably super risky. You left your business for a month to film Bachelor in Paradise. How did you prepare for that?
For those who don't know, reality TV, you can't, or at least Bachelor, you can't check your phones, you can't check email. You literally, there's nothing. You have zero communication. So I had them write in my contract that at least twice a week, I could check emails to make sure that the stores didn't burn down.
If you could go back to store number 1, what would you coach younger Dan to do differently?
Probably slow down. Looking back on it, who knows? But probably if I would continue operating my 2 stores, I probably would still have those 2 today.
Alrighty, welcome back to Beyond the Register, everyone. I am Jeramey Watts. I am so excited. I have a very special guest here with me today, Mr. Dan Cox. You guys may have seen him from The Bachelorette if you know anything, but if not, he is leaving the red carpet and starting brick and mortar nutrition shops and Shopify e-commerce solution shops as well. We are so excited to be discussing today with Dan. Dan, I first of all want to welcome you.
Appreciate you having me.
But secondly, Dan, a few years ago, millions saw you on The Bachelorette living that Hollywood life, and today you're running nutrition shops and supplementing supplemental bottles as well. And most people in your shoes would have probably stuck to that influencer life, selling detox teas with your face on the bottle or something along those lines. But you went out and you actually opened 5 stores and built your own supplemental brand. So my question is, why trade the rose ceremonies and red carpets for inventory spreadsheets and 5 a.m. gym runs?
I don't know. I think I chose the wrong path. No, I think, the part of being on the show to me was just like a fun experience. It wasn't my end all be all. I wasn't, betting everything on that. I was just myself. It was a great experience. It came and went. While it was going on, it was very fun. But I knew it was very short lived. I didn't, move out to Hollywood and kind of try to follow that path. So, nutrition was always something that was kind of a part of my life. I came up in that kind of healthy beverage business. And then got recruited actually out of it into the wine business, and really just missed that kind of health and nutrition side of CPG. And so, I had a buddy who was opening up nutrition stores in Texas, picked his brain a little bit, and, it kind of became a thing where I was like, I can do this. I have no experience in retail, but I think I could figure it out. And, so I opened up my first store in Las Vegas, and we grew. We started opening up more stores, another one in California, and then grew to about 5 stores across the 2 states. And that's kind of how this whole journey started. And, within that started just finding a ton of voids in the market. Things my customers were looking for, results my customers were looking for, and products that weren't fitting those needs. And that's why I created our 2 brands. One was MetCon, which is kind of our sport nutrition line. And then Wellthy was our other line, which was kind of more health essentials, all encompassing results driven products.
That's awesome, man. So
yeah, that's why I didn't put all my eggs into the reality TV basket.
It's pretty cool that you were on reality TV. I got to say that. But so you were on reality TV. You kind of stopped doing that for a little bit and you started opening your own stores. You started out with brick and mortar nutrition shops and you later expanded into Shopify. But how did running physical stores, interacting face to face with customers and managing inventory on shelves maybe shape your approach to selling online?
I think it probably, listen, everyone's different. For me, I think it created kind of this more slow way of growth, for better, for worse. We were, as a retail store, you're kind of living and dying by your, 3 to 7 mile square radius around you, bringing those customers in, doing everything you can to get those customers through your door. And then it's kind of dissecting them and figuring out what goals they're looking for, what we can do, what products can help them reach their goals. And I think that kind of approach, I rolled it into my direct to consumer, websites, especially, and how we approach it, because now obviously you have this big, massive, group of customers, outside of your 3 to 5 mile square radius. And so it's like, well, what do we do to those customers? How do we interact with them? How do we give them, as much personal touch as possible? That really isn't, it's not possible online. But how do we kind of convey that? And how do we show that we understand their, concerns, their needs, what they're going through? And so I think it gave me a unique lens into that. And even more now, we're finally starting to kind of make that push into mass retail. And I think that experience I had on the floors behind the desk of my retail stores helps me relate to the big box retailers, for even the mom and pops, obviously, but even the big box retailers and the buyers, of knowing exactly what they're going through at the ground floor. When I think a lot of these brands that are going to market, especially if they start direct to consumer, they kind of have this, like, I don't know if it's jaded sense, but they have a sense of, well, we can drive, traffic to our website and we can convert those customers, not a sense of, well, what is that customer doing walking through the store? Not Googling, not, looking on Amazon. Like, why are they walking into the store looking for products? How is that need different than the consumers you're targeting online? And I think that kind of gave us a unique perspective on that. And really seeing, I've helped thousands of customers, like, hand to hand. And I don't think many direct consumer brands can say that unless they were, managing their customer service calls for the last 3 years. So, that's really the closest equivalent.
That's awesome. And did you happen to discover any surprising advantages to actually having the storefronts in an era when everyone declares that retail is dead?
You know what? Like I said, I think for better or for worse, right? Like, I probably held myself back. Like, we were later than we could have been to Amazon. We were kind of later than we could have been to the Shopify in the, meta boom of, like, very cheap, ad costs. So from that standpoint, we were definitely late. From the brand standpoint, from the formulation standpoint, kind of just customer experience, I think it gave us an advantage because I did take that time with the customers, getting direct feedback. Like, we literally had customers, we would, find their needs, select the products for them. And then the next month they're back in the store, and we have to make them happy, right? Like, we have to keep them,
right.
Keep our promise to them. Where I think with a lot of direct consumer brands, if you kind of, just laissez-faire about your customer experience and your retention, you don't really care. You got the one sale and, maybe they come back, maybe they don't. But as a brick and mortar, you live and die by every customer that comes through the door. And so I think that helped us kind of, definitely helped us kind of, figure out the formulas, the new products we were launching. Also helped us in brand direction, what we wanted on the packaging, our form factor. We had a lot of, we had a focus group of thousands of customers, that we were able to kind of, use that to craft what we then, have now.
That's awesome. So you identified kind of a gap in the market with your own supplemental line. And take us back to that realization. Like, what junk or missing innovation did you keep seeing in the nutrition store shelves that just made you say, you know what, like, screw it, I'm just going to make a better one myself?
It was a couple things. Once we got up to like 5 stores, obviously the number of customers we were seeing was increasing 5-fold from my first store. So, it's one of those things, you start seeing pattern recognition. And if you don't recognize the patterns, you're kind of an idiot, right? So one of the patterns we started seeing was, especially with women, looking at weight loss. We'd have a full kind of, 360 view, of our customers. So when they came in, especially for weight loss, we'd put them on a kind of in-store machine that would then take their body weight, their muscle mass, bone mass, water weight, everything. And so we'd have body fat analysis for them. So true numbers, not just a scale. Then we'd go through kind of a typical day of their diet. We'd go through what they're doing exercise wise, what their kind of day-to-day life was. Were they sedentary? Were they active? We take all those things into account and then look at their goals. And so we would put this kind of, it wasn't just like, oh, you want weight loss? Here's a pill for you. We spent a lot of times with these customers getting to know them to make sure we get them on the right products. And so, one of the things that kept coming up over and over again is we go through this whole process. And then we get to the shelf. The final part was going to the shelf and telling them the products that would help them kind of accelerate their goals. And I could see, especially females looking at the shelf and just kind of like that, like, what am I buying? Like, I'd be embarrassed to have these products in my cabinet, like the rip your face off fat burner and, like just the crazy aggressive labeling and packaging. And, regardless of what we told them about the product, like as soon as they got to the shelf, we could kind of see the hesitation. So that was one from a packaging standpoint, we knew we had to be approachable. We knew we wanted to be, not, fully leaning female, but definitely female friendly, like not turning off customers. So that was one of the big aha moments, that we kept seeing over and over again. The other one was, once we got up to this number of stores, we started having a lot of customers asking us questions that were deeper than what we would just, typically have on, know on the product or from the brand. So, customers come and say, hey, just curious, where's this protein coming from? Like, what's the extraction method on this collagen? Where's the tumor coming from? Where's the cacao? Like, what's the flavoring? How's this sweetener extracted? And just all these questions that we would, reach out to the brands and we'd ask the brands directly. So that was one of our things. We never ordered from any, distributors. We always ordered directly from brands. So we have that kind of direct point of contact. But even within that, we were selecting some of the best brands on the market, all FDA registered, GMP certified, NSF. And we reach out to the brands and ask them some of these questions and they'd have no idea. And it was kind of a moment of like, okay, this is a problem. We're frontline of defense for our customers. They have questions for us. The brands we're buying products from can't even answer those questions. Like, we got to get back to you. And it's like, we're not asking like the most nuanced thing. It should be, some very basic information about your supply chain, where your ingredients are coming from. And I kind of came to learn that, and I don't want to bash, a lot of people bash the supplement industry. So this isn't about that, because the food industry is the same. The beverage industry is the same.
Yeah.
It's driven by co-man. So co-packers, co-manufacturers, whatever you want to call them. So if a brand's coming out, they're going to reach out to probably 2, 3, 4, 5 co-mans. They're going to say, hey, here's a formula we're looking for. Quote us a price on it. Every co-man knows that every brand is doing this. So they're literally incentivized to find the cheapest raw materials they can to then deliver the cheapest quote they can. So it's all a race to the bottom. And like I said, this is no different than food, bars, beverage. It's all the same. And so, and even outside of CPG, to be honest. But, so I started realizing, okay, the industry, and these brands are kind of in a race to the bottom to find the cheapest raw materials to then package. Because at the end of the day, vitamin C on the label is vitamin C. If people don't know the difference between a whey concentrate, a whey isolate, and a whey casein, the brand doesn't care. They're going to find the cheapest one they can put in the product. So that's when I really started, okay, we need to start building relationships with raw material suppliers so we can dictate our supply chain. And that was another kind of moment of like, okay, if I can find manufacturers that will allow us to bring in our own raw materials, now we're dictating exactly where that product is coming from. Every single ingredient, single origin, we know exactly where it's coming from. We know the extraction method. We know how it was made, where it's from. And so that became our North Star of like, all right, now if we can dictate full vertical supply chain, great manufacturers to produce it, why don't we just do that? Now we have every question answered that our customers would have. And that's how both brands kind of came about.
Do you feel like the education portion has helped you close and solidify deals by having that education, speaking with your employees, letting them know where it comes from, how it interacts with other minerals within the supplement? Do you feel like that education concept has helped you grow your business?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, especially when I did own my stores, we were able to, obviously the amount of clarity we had on my brands was, drastically higher than any other brand. And so we were just able to, just by the employees being able to speak more clearly, have more clarity, more visibility on every ingredient in the product, I think made it easier for them to sell it. Obviously we kind of formulated them to be more effective anyways, but the fact, even if they were, apples to apples, just our team being able to speak so much at a higher level, about the products, I think was definitely a point of differentiation that helped them grow in our stores. And then obviously it helps me, reach out to other retailers and sell the product to other retailers, as well as talk to our customers directly through, kind of email and other marketing channels.
That's awesome. So you launched multiple brands. I know you mentioned MetCon and Wellthy as kind of a broader wellness line, but what made you go that route instead of putting everything just under one umbrella, one marketing umbrella?
I ask myself that every day. I think, the brands were created for the stores, and more specifically, they were created for retail. And so when I created MetCon, that was our first brand. This was in a time when no one was doing natural in the sport nutrition space, and it was more of kind of a personal thing for me. I was doing triathlons, I was doing Ironmans, I was doing marathons, working out consistently. And I was like, I like all the ingredients in these products, but I don't like the fact that they're artificially sweetened. I don't like the fact that they're artificially flavored. I don't like the fact that it's like bright neon purple. I don't need that. And so that was kind of my first, moment of, okay, this is a category that I think I need. And I remember starting MetCon and being like, well, if it fails, I've got 5 years supply of pre-workout. That was kind of my mentality on it, is I'm going to make this product for me. And more people liked it. So that's how MetCon was created. Definitely more sport nutrition, a little more edgy, not like hardcore by any means, but definitely more like workout driven, performance driven. And then when I told you the story about kind of the women coming in the store and looking at products, I knew that there was an opportunity for a more female focused line, that was more approachable, had better aesthetics, was lighter, from a kind of marketing standpoint, from a feel standpoint. And so that's how Wellthy came about. And so Wellthy became like, hey, this is our like health essential line. And to be honest, when I was doing it for the stores, like, it made sense to have multiple brands in stores, right? We just didn't want to have like our house brand and, it be, seen as like, well, these guys are just pushing their line. Like, it was definitely very specific for that point. And so that's how Wellthy came to be. And then we've just kind of grown both. MetCon does much better in like sport nutrition retail. Wellthy now is kind of blown up, into, direct consumer Amazon, and now we're launching into mass market across the country. So, I still ask myself that question of what am I doing? And I'm going to have to figure it out at some point here soon, but, it is kind of what it is. And, that's a question for the end of this year, probably.
Dude, I love it. And, so I actually have lost 100 pounds through workout. Yeah, thanks, man. And I've really started getting into supplements and things. And, the supplement industry can be a little bit of a shady place with a little bit of flashy claims, unlisted ingredients, and all of that. And I've really tried to kind of own my nutrition. And I think that's the biggest part of it. But you've been really vocal about cutting out the nonsense of nutrition products. So how hard was it to get customers to trust you that your clean supplements actually worked as well as those neon colored, purple filled that you mentioned, chemical filled stuff that they were used to? Did you have to educate consumers or fight skepticism when rolling out those plant-based protein or natural fat burners?
Yeah, I mean, we had the opportunity to do trial and store. Again, another advantage to having brick and mortar retail. So, able to, if customers didn't buy the product on the first time, we can give them a sample. They could try it, compare it to what they're taking, and then come back and let us know. So that was a huge advantage with our retail stores. But yeah, I mean, it's a challenge every day. I mean, that there is, and especially fast forward to today, you have your, the kind of doctor influencers, or just, social media influencers that, everyone's got a stake, everyone's, getting a paycheck. That's how they've grown to what they've grown to. So, and I'm not against it, but yeah, there's a lot of noise. There's a lot of conflicting information. And at the end of the day, like, everything is very much like, how does it make the individual feel? And it is about like, yeah, you're going to have to test things out. I always said like, I had a history in the wine business, and supplements are kind of like wine. At the end of the day, they want a personal recommendation. Like, you can go into the wine aisle and you can look around and you can look off labels. You can look off, like little point scores that are on there. But at the end of the day, most people want a recommendation from a friend, from, the wine store in the store. And so supplements are kind of the same way. Like, people are still looking for someone to tell them like, hey, this really worked for me. I know what you're going through. This product will work. And so, it's definitely like a missing point in the kind of direct to consumer world. It's being replaced with influencers saying it, but, there's a lot of skepticism that, most of these influencers getting paychecks. So, how can we really trust them? I will say I always had a line that like, Wellthy is, it's your influencer's favorite, product, but they just don't post it because we don't pay them for it. So, that was kind of our, our claim to fame for a little while. And I still believe it. Like we just don't spend money. We don't believe paying people to say something that they don't believe. So we would rather take the chance that either people are going to take the product and love it. They don't talk about it great. And the ones that do, even better, and that's kind of the approach we've taken with it. And it's worked out. I mean, most of our growth is word of mouth. Like we hardly spend any money on ads. And so it is really a word of mouth story, in the world of, every brand spending, losing money on the first customer, hoping to get the second sale and all that. We just haven't gone down that path. We haven't, we don't have any influencers on payroll. We don't do any of that stuff. So it's more of like the everyday customer. It's working for them telling their friends.
That's awesome. So whenever you're thinking through kind of brand awareness, was that an intentional, I would assume it was an intentional decision to not bring in additional branding, marketing, all of those types of environments. Would you say that was an intentional thing?
Intentional in the sense that we bootstrapped the whole thing, so we didn't have the financial ability to do those things. And so we were forced to grow organically. And so that's, it was basically the North Star was do the right thing by the customers and they will tell their friends and it'll grow that way. And that's kind of what we've stuck to.
That's awesome. So, you mentioned that you owned 5 retail stores, and I just have to say that's intense, first and foremost. Hiring, training, multiple leases. You did it all relatively quickly, too. So what were your biggest challenges in scaling your brick and mortar footprint? Any moments where you thought you were in maybe over your head?
Oh, 100%. I think it's very easy. I shouldn't say that. It's not very easy. One store is hard. But when you get that store, when you understand everything going on within those walls, all your liabilities, in worst case scenario, you have, employees that can't make it, you can come in and do it, right? When you go to 2 stores, you can't do that. And so, there was that jump from 1 to 2 that was like, okay, leap of faith. But they were both successful. I think where, and I've seen this happen before, when people have success with like 2 retail stores, they've probably done a really good job at knowing the market, especially that first store, getting it right, building the community around the store. And then they kind of take that blueprint, put it in the next store. If you're doing it alone, and then when you go to 3, I think you're going to have some diminishing returns. At least I did. And that was a major challenge of thinking we can do the same thing in every market we did it. And every market was different. And so that was a big learning curve of like, okay, now we're going to have to put more assets in this market to really get to, make it what the other ones are. And then, decided to do it again and again. So, there was learning in every new store we opened. For anyone out there who's dealt with leases, like that is just, it's just crazy. Like it's crazy what landlords get away with. And so negotiating, those lease deals was intense, doing the build outs, obviously, making it fit for the right footprint, and, just retail's tough, man. There's no kind of bulletproof retail plan, things that you don't expect to come up. More challenges than I can tell you, along the way. And it was fun. It was great. Like, I actually really enjoyed having that kind of store presence. It's kind of like one of those things, like you always, celebrities always want to open like, restaurants, and you're like, why? It's not profitable. And I think it is literally that sense of community of coming in, like, this is my place, having like a pride of ownership. And there was definitely that. The other funny part about retail, when I used to own retail stores and I tell people what I did, there was this like, oh my God, like you own retail stores? Like that's crazy. Like you have 5 stores. This is wild. And then, even though the brands were doing more than the retail stores, like when I tell people like, oh yeah, I own a couple supplement lines, they're like, oh, that's cool. Like there's no like lore or, like, oh yeah, sure. I know a couple of people that have, brands or CPG or whatever. So it was a funny, like, I don't know. It was just a funny, like, it's just different. Retail is just different.
Yeah.
If you've never owned a retail store, if you've never been an operator, you probably won't understand this, but there's just more. It's like I feel like every retail owner could have their own reality TV show, because the amount of crazy stuff that happens in those stores it's wild.
Yeah, 100%. So, if you could go back to store number 1, just where you're on the right path of just one store, what would you coach younger Dan to do differently?
Probably slow down. I realized that you still had a lot more to squeeze out of that one store before opening up the second, and then the same advice on the second. And it is, looking back on it, who knows, but it probably, if I would have continue operating my 2 stores, I probably would still have those 2 today. Because how profitable they were, because how, the ease of managing 2 versus 5, the risk, the capital, depletion, inventory, all those things, you spread yourself thin, when you go that far. So, I would have probably told myself to slow down. But, the other part of that, when I started opening up more stores, is when I had more opportunity for my own brand. So it's tough to say. Like I may not have started my own brands if I stuck with the 2 stores. They were profitable. They did great. But maybe I didn't start the brands for them. So it's, there's no like regret in it, but yeah, to do it all over, slow down, get more, realize that there's always more opportunity in the one than taking that and trying to divide attention time across 2, across 3, across 4, across 5. I feel like it's different now too, where there's, I would have wanted to create a much better, invested more in the experience for the customer. We were doing a lot of hand-to-hand pop out with the customers. But I think now, especially, it's like, what can you do in store that beats the convenience of ordering online? Like what are the additional things that customer can get, that, because they're taking time to drive to your store, to put up with a salesperson, right? To find a product they need or to get advice. So what can you give them? Like, what's the benefit for them to do that again, as opposed to just ordering online next time? And I think that's probably the question I would have had myself, like, really spend a lot of time on with my team of like, these people are taking time out of their day. And I think when that, I had a moment when that hit me. We had 2 stores that had Office Maxes inside our shopping center, right? So I could have easily had one of our employees run across to that Office Max, buy our paper, receipts, bags, whatever we needed. We weren't doing that. We were ordering all that stuff on Amazon. And so I was kind of, that was a moment I hit of like, okay, we don't feel the value of walking across the street to go buy office equipment. So what are we doing to our customers to get them in to feel the value of coming into our stores? I think I would have pushed on that in creating a little bit more experience, more.
Okay. So, we've actually spoken to some other people on the podcast around kind of creating this touch point or creating an environment of touch points. And I think it's interesting to hear you say that by creating an environment that is welcoming and encompassing of all, you're actually replicating an experience that you can't get in Amazon. You can't get that from the direct to consumer brands. And I think that's really a strong point to call out here. But, you did something that was probably super risky. You left your business for a month to film Bachelor in Paradise, and you essentially put your business in someone else's hand and you just went off the grid. So how did you prepare for that? Did you systematize everything, rely on right-hand person, just hope for the best? Like, how did you manage that?
I had a really good store manager, or district manager. And I had guys that I felt confident in the stores. Again, I could tell you a million stories about how you wouldn't feel confident about, people in the stores, but I did. I felt pretty confident. I wrote into, so for those who don't know, reality TV, you can't, or at least Bachelor, you can't check your phones, you can't check email. You literally, there's nothing. You have zero communication. So I had them write in my contract that at least twice a week I could check emails to make sure that the stores didn't burn down. And so I would be on a producer's phone. I would log into my email. They would be looking over my shoulder to make sure that I wasn't releasing any secrets or anything. And I'd go through my emails and just, I have my manager give me an update on, kind of sales, any major issues. And if everything was fine, it was just like, everything's good, continue. And that was kind of it. It was definitely a leap of faith. I was a lot younger, so probably a lot more, kind of like risk friendly, you would say. But I mean, yeah, like coming back, I could have, who knows what would have happened or what could have happened, but it worked out. I mean, and anyone who knows too, who's been in this, like even when you go on like a week vacation, and you have retail stores, you're freaking out. And so but then when you get back, you realize like everything's fine. Like day to day, we're okay. Like, if you had a down week, you can blend it out over the next 2, and so it was one of those things. After it was done, it was like, well, that wasn't that bad to freak out about. My team was good. And I felt confident. Yeah, looking back on it now, I don't know. It was crazy.
Yeah. How did you let the reins go? I mean, I know that you negotiated in your contract, but
Yep.
what were you thinking? What was your mindset?
I don't know. I was thinking like, let's go on an adventure and let's see what happens. So yeah, it was a crazy time. Like, it's funny to think back on it now. Like, I don't think I've really reflected on it and those like little moments, but it was pretty crazy to do that. But like I said, I had a good team. I had a really good guy in place that took care of a lot of things. I felt confident. He had enough. He had the capabilities of dealing with anything that came across. And so, and he had ownership. So he felt, he felt tied to the stores to make sure they weren't going to collapse while I was gone.
That's awesome. So, you mentioned earlier about the Ironman triathlete, and I have been kind of practicing for an Ironman, not nearly to the level that you guys probably do, but you've even faced a major setback when a drunk driver hit you and sidelined you for 2 years, yet you came back even stronger. So first off, I want to give you kudos to that, but how has the athlete mindset shaped how you run your business?
That's a great question. I mean, I don't know if I have that distinguish in me of like, oh, that's my athlete mindset that's dictating this. So, I don't know how to answer that question other than like, it's just, there's always, whatever setbacks like, I think of business the same way I think about a lot of things. Like, it's problem solution. It's literally just figuring out problems. Like, if you have an issue, like there's a solution to it. Like, it may not be pretty, but you can find a solution to it. It may not be easy, but you can find a solution. And so most things I do, like, I try not to get stressed out about, and I just look at it as like, okay, if you remove the emotion out of this, like, what is the actual problem here? And then what do we need to do to fix it? And I think that's how I approach business. And it's probably the same in like, in an athletic standpoint.
Has running a business taught you anything about resilience that made you a better athlete, you feel like?
Yeah, probably vice versa. It's definitely, yeah, I would say so. Like, I think the mindset of operating, whether it's retailer or direct consumer brands, is, it's very much like, it's not pretty. It's not what you see on Instagram. There's always challenges. There's always unforeseen things. And really, a race is the same way. When I did my Ironman, I got hit by another rider about mile 80. She just passed out and ran into me. So you think of it like this thing you train for a year for, and all of a sudden it's like, it's gone in a second. And so it's like I don't know, get back up on the bike and keep going. But yeah, that's like, those things happen, and you just got to kind of, like, if you don't give yourself an out, there's always a way through.
Absolutely. How do you train? How do you balance this intense training that you're doing with running multiple companies without burning out? That seems like you're doing a lot.
I'll be honest with you. I mean, dropping triathlon helped out a lot. Doing Ironmans is an intense amount of training. You basically give up your life for it. If you're also running a business, it's a lot of hours out. And so stopping that, like, I got to a point of like, I really didn't really enjoy, the bike anymore. And I think it was because it was one, you mentioned getting hit by a drunk driver. I had some back issues and real tight, lower disc problems. And so I never felt comfortable being on a bike. And so spending, 10 to 12 hours a week on a bike it just wasn't making me happy. And then so that, I think, had something to do with it. And then also the hours, just the amount of hours away from friends and family, and kind of, not like I wasn't missing out on life, but it was definitely, it's a lot. And I enjoyed, it got to the point of where I did it to the point of where I still enjoyed it. And as soon as I stopped enjoying the races, the race wasn't worth the 3 to 6 months of training. That's when I was like, okay, I'm gonna start pulling it back, and that's when I really fell in love with just like running and just swimming. Like, going to a swim race, if you've done Ironmans, and then just to go to a swim race is like, it's like a vacation. Like, you can have a glass of wine the night before. You like, it's not as early. You can, you walk away after with no pain. And so I was like, this is cool.
Right.
Like, these are fun. And even a marathon, like, yeah, it's tough. But it's not the same. It's not the same amount of time, and it's not the same amount of pain as an Ironman. So, I kind of fell in love with just like the simplicity of running, the simplicity of swimming, removing the bike, because the bike is, out of all those sports, it's the one that requires the most equipment, the most time. And so that was the easiest thing for me. But yeah, it's still a challenge. Like even just running, I have a 1-year-old now, and
Congratulations.
yeah, I appreciate it. And still, having, time to spend with him, it's definitely like you're dividing your attention up. And it's, it definitely, I'll actually say that having a kid has made me more focused than even the training did, right? The training was, well, I can turn it off and on. Having my little guy, it's like, well, I either take this meeting, I go to this dinner, or I do this, or I spend time with my little guy. So it's really got to be important.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I think that takes us to the next conversation around looking 5 years in advance, right? So you have this big plan, I assume, that you're going to want to scale. So do you want to see Wellthy on the shelves of GNC or Target, or do you prefer staying more direct to consumer and boutique, and why?
It's funny you bring it up. We're actually launching in GNC in 2 weeks. So
congratulations, Dan.
Yeah, thank you. It's been a big, long journey. That was about a 9-month process. And so, we finally, we had turned down a couple pretty big offers, retail offers, over the last 2 years, over the last 3 years, just really not being ready to kind of take that on. And I think over the last couple of years, we've built up enough customer base and we've built up enough attention, and we really know what our core products are, that we can deliver and get results compared to what's on the shelf of some of these retail stores. So yeah, so GNC is obviously a big one for us. That's going to be our big focus for 2026. We're doing an exclusive with them for 9 months, and then for national, and then we'll see. I mean, I have a couple targets in mind. No pun intended, but Target is one of them. And I really like Club. Like I like Sam's and I like Costco. Because it reminds me of my retail stores. And most people laugh when I say that, but there's not many places anymore where you go into and customers are willing to discover. And I think Costco and Scams have done a great job of creating that discovery, of people willing to try new products. It doesn't have to be the brand they know. It just has to be a good price point and a good value. And I think the authority that Costco and Sam's Club carries about the brands that go in there, it has a lot of weight with customers. And I think that is one of the most powerful retail opportunities right now. It's there's less competition in the store and there's more attention on the brand, being able to market it. That's one of the things we focus on from a retail standpoint. We're one of the first companies to move our capsules from a bottle into a bag. And the whole point was to give the customer a better experience of understanding what the product is going to do for them. Have enough verbiage, have enough real estate on that so that we can communicate exactly what it's going to do. They didn't need a magnifying glass to read the supplement panel. And from a retail standpoint, selfishly, we're going to stand out because we are a bigger footprint on the shelf. And so I think that retail is going to be big for us.
First off, congratulations on GNC.
Thank you
That's
so
such
much.
an exciting announcement. How did you, as a small business owner, get that conversation started? How did you start building those relationships with GNC, with Sam's Club, with Target? How are you hitting the ground running with that?
Expo West is a big part of that. So that's a big, packaged goods conference in Anaheim. Basically all the big CPG brands set up booths there. All the retailers are there. So we've been doing that show for 3 years now. Very much a kind of learning for us. It was one of the shows I went to before we even had intentions going into retail, and I kind of aspired, like one day I'm going to have a booth here. And we did it, 3 years ago, was our first one, definitely a huge learning experience. The next year kind of started having those conversations. And then the next year was really our opportunity to lock up some of these retailers. So, it was definitely a long process. Like there's no quick mode of, I had a friend who made a call. It was definitely a long building, and proving ourselves, with our products in the space. And so, it's, that's kind of how it all came to be.
When can we expect to see your products in GNC?
So GNC should be the week of January 22nd. They should start hitting the stores. Basically, by the end of January, we should be nationwide.
Congratulations, Dan. That's amazing, man. Are you excited?
I mean, yeah, it's been, like I said, it's kind of crazy because it's been we started the conversations in March, got the confirmation back in September, that we were going to be moving forward. And so it's crazy how long these things take. I feel like I've been working on it. I have been working on it for almost a year. So it's been kind of exciting this whole time. And now once the product's in, so it's Wellthy, our sweat, cleanse, sleep, and revive. So once those products are in store, now it's about, making sure, all the, the employees know. And again, that's the point of, my experience with retail is I can talk to these store managers and these, just the cashiers in a way that I don't think many brands can. And so giving them the points they need to be able to, help kind of build up the shopping cart, for the customers to come in, identifying the needs of the customers and where these products fit in with those needs. That's going to be our big challenge. And then also just awareness of being in the stores.
Dude, that's amazing. So ultimately, last question for you. What's the biggest vision driving Dan Cox's journey now? And what impact do you want to leave in the wellness and retail world by the time you're done?
There's a lot in the world of like these CPG founders, and there's a lot of, kind of the show of, the private jets and the, speaking at conferences and, even like the Forbes, like 30 under 30 and all that stuff. I was never a part of that. I always, I don't know. It always felt, I never knew how to feel about it. Like obviously I have friends that have done it, proud of them. But there was always kind of those conversations, and you always hear those people, I think above that level, that have made it and gone beyond. And they're always just like, if you feel, if this is what you believe in, stick with it and it'll come true. And I think that's really been kind of my North Star of like blocking out the noise, blocking out the showy, stuff that everyone else is doing, that, there's kind of this impression of what a CPG founder, like me, what a successful CPG founder looks like. I've never really fit into that. And so just kind of head down, building, without all that. And coming out and then being able to tell people like, this is possible. Like you're able to make a really good product, not cut corners, do right by your customers and be successful without doing all these things. I think that kind of drives me quite a bit. I don't know if that's like a bad thing or a good thing, but
that's a great thing.
Yeah, I mean, it's, we do subtle stuff too. We donate a meal for every product we sell. We don't talk about it. We just do it. There's like all these things we just do that I think I'll be proud coming out the other end of it.
Absolutely. Well, Dan, thank you so much for your time today. I have really appreciated getting to learn more about you and your business. I think you have an amazing story to share, and I can't wait for our listeners to hear it. Guys, thank you so much for joining us today. This has been Beyond the Register. If you guys have any questions or concerns, please feel free to use the comment section below. We would be happy to address any questions that you have. So, Dan, one more time, thank you, sir, for joining us today. I hope you have a great rest of your day.
Thank you so much for having me.
We'll see you guys on the next one. Bye, guys. Beyond the Register is sponsored by Genius, the modern point-of-sale system from Global Payments designed for retailers. Genius helps you reach your most important goals, whether that's simplifying your operations, tracking inventory, managing customer insights, or taking payments wherever your business takes you. To find out more, visit globalpayments.com/genius.